What a ravishing sound. Perhaps you recognized it as the opening of Ravel's Introduction and Allegro. But could you tell what instruments were playing? Let's look. A harp, a flute, a clarinet, and a string quartet. A unique combination of instruments. Ravel devised it specially for this one piece, and as far as I know, it's never been written for since. I want first to discuss why Ravel chose this combination and what sort of sounds he got from it. Then we'll listen to the complete piece. Ravel loved to explore new tone colors and textures, so we'll concentrate on the sound of the piece rather than, say, its structure. Ravel's sounds are different and exciting, but his structures are often comparatively traditional. The Introduction and Allegro, in fact, is in sonata form, just as you might find in Mozart and Haydn, but the sounds are pure Ravel. As you listen to the opening bars of the introduction, the one instrument I'm sure you didn't miss was the harp. Listen to its almost theatrically effective entry once more. Ravel wrote on the title page of the score, Introduction and Allegro for harp, accompanied by string quartet, flute and clarinet. You wouldn't be far wrong in thinking of the piece as a miniature harp concerto movement, which isn't to say that the other instruments aren't important. On the contrary, they're beautifully integrated into the whole texture. But why did Ravel choose the harp? Two reasons, I think. First, at the time he wrote the piece, in 1905, he was influenced by the French artistic movement known as the Art Nouveau. In the visual and decorative arts, Art Nouveau expressed itself in flowing, feminine, exotic designs, avoiding anything too heroic or assertive. What better instrument for evoking this sort of atmosphere than the harp? Its sound is soft and gentle, perhaps slightly exotic, and it has a flowing, caressing sort of quality too. Here are some typical harp arpeggios. To produce the magical, watery effect that many of us associate with the harp, the fingers are run across the strings. This is known as a glissando. Another lovely effect is obtained by lightly touching a string while at the same time plucking it in the normal way. This produces harmonics, which have a wonderfully distant, evocative sound. All these qualities made the harp an ideal Art Nouveau instrument. But the second reason Ravel wrote for it was, I think, that it presented a challenge. Ravel was the sort of composer who liked to find a problem, then solve it. The problem in this case was simply that the harp is not an easy instrument to write for. Unlike the piano, which has 12 notes to the octave, the harp has only 8, tuned to the notes of the diatonic scale. To sharpen or flatten a note, the harpist has to operate foot pedals which affect the length of the strings and so alter their pitch. There's one pedal for all the Cs, one for all the Ds, and so on. If Una moves all the pedals to the natural position, she can play a scale of C major. To play a scale of C minor, the E and A pedals have to be moved to the flat position. Although pedals can be, and often have to be, changed while playing, it's still not possible to write very chromatically for the harp. This can be one major limitation. Another is that the little finger can't be used in harp playing, so only 4 fingers are available in each hand. This makes rapid scales, for instance, more difficult than on the piano. Ravel was a master craftsman, and he managed to get round these limitations. What's more, he used the special attributes of the harp, like glissandos and harmonics, to marvelous effect. But what about the other 6 instruments? The sound of the harp isn't powerful, so a small group is obviously less likely to drown it than a full orchestra would be. Ravel could have used just a small group of strings, but he loved to combine tone colors, which is why I think he used woodwind. He chose flute and clarinet because they're the 2 gentlest, most liquid-sounding members of the woodwind family. Listen to this effect from the introduction. Flute and clarinet also blend well together. Remember the opening? Flute and clarinet can also blend unobtrusively into the overall texture in a way that the rather more penetrating oboe and bassoon couldn't. What's more, they're the nimblest woodwinds, able to match the rapid arpeggios of the harp. And of course, they're both good as solo instruments, either singly or playing together in octaves. Here's a nice passage where they play the second subject of the Allegro in octaves, both in their low registers. Finally, the string quartet. That's a familiar enough medium by itself, but in this piece, Ravel exploits its potential as an accompaniment group. For much of the time, this accompaniment consists of chords, but Ravel dresses them up with great skill and resource. Let's look at an excerpt from the introduction, where the woodwind and the violins accompany a cello tune. The accompaniment consists essentially of 2 alternating chords. Here they are on the harp. Ravel takes the notes of these chords and gives them to the 2 violins in rapid up and down arpeggios. One violin is plucked, the other is played with the bow in the normal way. Let's hear them by themselves first. At the same time, Ravel gives the woodwind similar arpeggios, with each note repeated, a technique known as double tonguing. The effect, when they're all put together, is marvelous. And that's only the accompaniment. We'll hear the cello tune that goes with it in the complete performance later. I can't resist showing you one more passage where Ravel builds up the sound layer by layer. It's the first subject of the Allegro, and its harmonic basis is simply 1 chord, G-flat major, with an added 6th and an added 2nd. Ravel starts with a pizzicato cello. He adds a low clarinet, violins moving in triplets, harp arpeggios, and finally the tune on flute and viola in octaves. here's quite a different sort of chordal accompaniment. No mistaking the flavor of the Spanish guitar there. In fact, there's a strong Spanish flavor to much of the piece, and you'll hear guitar-like effects on plucked strings in a number of places. Let's turn now to the piece as a whole. As I said earlier, its structure is a traditional one. There's a slow introduction that literally introduces the main themes, followed without a break by a sonata form allegro, complete with first and second subjects, a development section in which the themes are ingeniously combined, and a recapitulation. The only unexpected feature is a solo cadenza for the harp, which comes after a climax at the end of the development and leads straight into the recap. There's a fair amount of repetition of the same material throughout the piece, but Ravel never scores anything the same way twice. Here's the first theme. Now the version you've already heard from later on in the exposition. And finally, as it appears at the start of the recap. You can remind yourself of the extracts that we've heard as they're in your broadcast notes. Some of the main points I've mentioned will also be shown on the screen as we listen now to Ravel's Introduction and Allegro, played for us by the Nash Ensemble.